It is your buddy, peace and harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in really kind of a round two of a great viewer question, and that's what is really going on. Can you please discuss the foundation of the love bombing and sort of how people get manipulated? And it also includes sort of, for me, so when at the love bombing stage, there's definitely where one has to be blind to red flags. So part of this becomes sort of an unconscious, willingness to participate with their disagreeableness and saying, well, maybe they're just going to be like this. So people sort of, unconsciously accept this, sort of, where they have this excessive need for admiration, their entitlement, and then you're just going to be sort of the supply, you're sort of, it's about them and then how you mirror them back and how you're supportive or giving, sort of, and then tolerant of their disagreeableness, tolerant of their mood swings or their impulsiveness and their sort of anger, and sort of chronic disappointments. People are, then they tend to be like, well, others are just letting me down. You let me down. So the everything sort of becomes externalized for a narcissist, even in the love bombing. You are the most handsome. You are, the most beautiful. You are so sweet. You are so handsome. Whatever that sort of exchange is. I'm going to take good care of you might be the other one. You take good care of me. We fit like a glove. I mean, it might feel so, oceanic and you might be really enamored. It might have been for some people a long, it might have been a familial relationship where you had no choice. This is just a force that you found that you contended with in your family. This is beyond your control. This is not for your asking. This is not for your doing. It might be for your undoing, and learning from the experience and separation thereof, and understanding that this is okay to give permission to separate and sort of disown, the negative rebuffing as sort of the ongoing chronic experience in a narcissist relationship. Because as we're saying, as part of the love bombing, there becomes a coyness or a cattiness where they sort of deflect off to others that, in a sort of a sarcasm or sort of an authoritarian or domineering way, where they sort of, get little by little a leg up, a knee up, an arm up, an attitude up, and then they have that narcissist attitude sort of going full throttle in its shining glory, and where they then begin to maybe embarrass you, give you these sweet little nothings is, part of the manipulation to understand in the love bombing is sort of this, I'm leading you, and then why did you follow me here? In other words, you're being cooperative, you're being supportive, and then you're in the relationship, and then all of a sudden they just put the brakes on it, you go flying forward, and they're like, why are you following me? They want you to, they give the message that they want to be admired, they want to be followed, they want to be, you need to fan their flames, but then they're like, why are you giving me what I wanted? It becomes this whole cognitive dissonance, and you realize that there is no verbal exchange. It's just them and just sort of how they see themselves, and they're just sort of in their own bubble, and it's just they're a separate entity that does not interact, exchange, share, open, honest, fair. It's a decoy. It's a very bad, hurtful decoy. It's a very bad cognitive dissonance creating decoy. Just like if you were to see a decoy in a pond that looks like a duck, and next thing you know, that duck is spurting out something in the air that you can't breathe, it's making you sick. That is what is going to happen in the relationship. It's going to give you some abrasive and unhealthy energy and air and vision and sensual experience that is unfavorable, uncomfortable, and make you feel that you're maybe not rotting, but that you're, eligible for, being in a human relationship. People can feel that shame-based and that degraded as a result of their style of manipulation. It is that of a force, and you have to be like a counter force to their force. There is no when it gets in the psychopathic, no, that is very severe. Part of the foundation of the love bombing is, part of, I'm just kind of remembering here, is that, they will sort of, lead, and sort of rebuff you that, you're incompetent. So when it becomes through the love bombing, they're very much like, if they'll, maybe, be the charming one in the dynamic, and then so you kind of follow them, or that's how they want it. Basically, they might have sort of set up, they can tend to be a leader in the relationship, or be so passive that you have to be the leader, that there's like nothing there. It's like they don't have any sort of level to them. You end up being the leader and then doing everything, and then you keep everything going until the point of adrenal fatigue, and like, why is our relationship the way that it is? And they're just like, usually all the blame is on you. You're the incompetent one. You're a disappointment. You're not motivated enough, or you're too motivated. There's always, going to be this sort of very demeaning dynamic that they extend emotionally to others. And it doesn't have anything to do with you. The problem is that this then, once that closeness, once that vulnerability is open, once that trust is open, and you have opened up yourself to them, you've been vulnerable. Some narcissists are very vulnerable, some are very callous, and you'll know it sort of how neurotic their fighting is, and just sort of their sort of grandiose, like, there is no discussion in the relationship with them, because they have to come out stronger every time. They will not give you a fair shake, a fair audience, etc. And oftentimes that need for them to be admired, even just to be in the relationship, leads to that dependency that you then extend to them, which then becomes codependency. So that you are on the same page with them, so that you're staying together. So, in other words, for things to even just continue on, you have to sort of, to comply, it becomes a need for admire. So you end up getting set up in that role. I mean, that is just one of the core elements of that dynamic. You will just understand that that's one of the characteristics of this relationship, that it always has, it feels, that you always have to admire them, that it is not comfortable for them to share the same with you, because that would be out of line with the narrative that they're trying to tell you in the relationship, which oftentimes is a narrative that they make up, So that's why people feel so unrepresented, so devalued, and so discarded, because it's like your vote that you cast doesn't matter. It doesn't hit the inbox. It just ain't flying over there. Their signals are just not on. They lack empathy, meaning that they don't have an ability to put their needs aside for another. They have an inability, just like you have an ability to walk, or an ability to love, or an ability to pick up a dog that's hurt and nurse it and be gentle with it and know what to do. They lack the ability of empathy. And so just as you have empathy, if someone's really in a bad spot and like you really need help, or you've just seen something tragic and you're running to help, I mean, it's just automatic. You have empathy. Or when, just like when somebody listens to you and they understand what you're going through, they're extending empathy, and you feel understood, and you feel, some sense of relief, and sort of help, to discuss things. And like, I have to make a change, and changes, like emotional changes, can be difficult. It's not like changing the plates, we're talking about emotional change. This is emotional change. People don't talk about this. We don't learn about this in school. We don't learn, sometimes they might be the class clown, the class bully. That's about as far as it gets in terms of, you don't always have character education in school. What is integrity? What is honesty? What is justice? What is sportsmanship? I mean, I know it goes, but a lot of it is not very formal, or if at all, very informal. But now when we talk about the dynamics with the narcissist, so it's just sort of this, I would say, just this overall, just sort of treating you as if you're incompetent, incapable. We're talking, I mean, it can be as just as outrageous as, you can't cut the tomato the right way. Why are you using the lid? Why aren't you using the lid? Why are you wasting energy with this burner? It's already, I mean, just you can't even leave a footprint, a fingerprint, a presence, without it being, judged or questioned. And the problem is that when there is enmeshment with a narcissist, there are no boundaries. There is no separation. There is no, I and us and we. It's more like the narcissist in their forcefulness, and there becomes then the way the pattern plays out is that the other supply becomes disempowered. This is just the reaction. Just like you turn on the water this way and the reaction is to go hot, that's just the reactional. It's like a chemical reaction that you experience with these people. Just like you might have a real, intimate connection chemistry, there's a different chemistry with these folks. So, and people become very disempowered and they can't find their own interests. They can't see the big picture. They can't see joy in their life. They can't see their own light. They can't even laugh. They can't even cry. They can't even, turn a faucet on. They can't even boil water the right way. It's just, it becomes so horrendous. A viewer was saying, why did they put the rice on this side? And, everything was up for question. I mean, you can't, your every move, when it gets very manipulative in the devaluing and then the discarding, it becomes that externalization of blame and then their externalization of anger, because it keeps them in a power position. It has nothing to do with you. Is the real takeaway, just like we were saying, someone who comes into the grocery store, you guys, sold me this and it was expired and this says 2000 and this, and then over here, and then the lady or the guy, misread it, and they're like, okay, ma'am, well, is anything else? Okay, have a good day. But the lady is externalizing her anger. We're really understanding emotional education here. It's so valuable to grow in your awareness and grow in your consciousness and being able to identify, because you really become sort of an elevated, person. You really become an aware, astute, and very peaceful and comfortable and happy person when you can just kind of see things and observe and identify and see kind of the role of how people are being taken advantage of or how people are being helped and what is the difference, or how people are loved or how they are being unloved, radically unloved, radically unheard, radically, not, neglected, radically denied, so in the problem with the love bombing in the relationship is that they'll sort of deny you your truth, deny you your happiness, deny you your competence. It's just everything is up for grabs, really, with them. And it becomes unmitigable, meaning you cannot really mitigate, you can't negotiate. It is not up for discussion. It is very rigid within them. So I think that's an interesting thing to learn, because I think a lot of people in the love bombing, they sort of kind of make this assumption that what comes around will go around in the relationship and it will kind of hum and dance on its own. But then something goes awry, and it's not going the way that you had envisioned. If, just because of that, don't let it take away your your vision. Don't let it take away your future, more so. Because your future is what you need to fall in love with. Your future is what you need to, really nurture and celebrate. Your future is what you really want to become enamored with and fall in love with your future. And really celebrating and having gratitude for what you have, not for what you were told that you didn't have. Or you need to unlearn that void that was set up within you. Just sort of realize that it's a sort of a learned state. Pete Walker, it's so important to realize that, the feeling then, because then you have to also watch out too, because then after, that manipulation, that sort of setting up of power dynamics, it's like the engine of the relationship. And, you're the one who is getting the ground down, getting ground down oftentimes. And you have to sort of, in order to maintain it, you have to sort of agree. You have to agree to their being disagreeable. You would just have to go along with it. And a lot of people then feel that they then have to become fake, or they become very sad. They're really becoming disempowered. They're really losing their self. They're really losing their representation. They're really losing their sense of humor. They're really taking things too seriously. The narcissist can be very brooding and very cerebral. It's all right up here. They've got 1,000,001 playbooks, plays in the playbook. These people are working on a playbook. You go here, I go there. I mean, but you're not given the playbook. They're just flipping pages. When this happens, yep, I go here, page 63, paragraph 3. Here it says right here, this is where, I call you stupid for falling in love with me. And then it's just like, there's, and then I say, but we're such a perfect match. You fit me like a glove. I mean, all this sort of, conflicting messages, which they're just sort of spinning on their own. And it does not have anything to do with you. They're creating their own atmosphere, if you will. Just like when they talk about, in the fires of Australia about a month ago, how some of those fires were so forceful that they created their own weather system, with clouds and rain and things, they're kind of like that. They sort of create their own storm. They sort of create their own conflict. They create their own complexity. They create a lot of this chaos. And when you get into more of the psychopathic, it is completely engineered chaos. And it then becomes, the relationship becomes this third thing, which you have no control over. I mean, it's like them saying that there's this orb in the air that they created and spun, and it's going to control the relationship, but you have nothing to do with it. I mean, they just create this this whole fabricated, exclusive world that you don't know how to function in. So they will, part of the manipulation to understand, if we want to describe this, because this is very intensive and I think very prominent in the relationships dynamics with these people who exhibit the narcissist characteristics, is to say that they will lead you, that they will be persuasive with a charm. They will tell you the things you want to hear. They will deceive and conceal. They will just sort of, shoulder you out, but then also shoulder you in. And when they create this dynamic, that, they're setting up their own just sort of game that begins with the lead. In other words, you follow, you admire, we're just sort of, and this is the dream, we're living the dream, with the narcissist. And then once you get there, they're like, you disgust me that, you're so incompetent that you thought that this relationship is going somewhere. Even though you've been, you've allowed them to lead. You've allowed them to, you've maybe even enabled them. You'd had to go along with them to become agreeable, and then to their disagreeableness and this constant feeling that you're incompetent. And then they sort of scoff at you for even pursuing the relationship. So it becomes, they sort of lead. It's a completely incompatible pattern. It's an incongruence, meaning it's an unequal. It just sort of, it cancels itself out. So that's why a lot of people feel that they wasted their time, because they part of their poof, part of their disappearance, part of their entitlement is this sort of, I'm gonna lead, and then I'm gonna rebuff you for following, and I'm gonna mislead. So it's this cognitive dissonance where they will set up the path, the yellow brick road. They'll set up, they'll lay it all out, and they can be very charming, and then you can have this, these sort of planned and forever happy moments. But then, they'll then just sort of rebuff you and say, you're like unbelievable for following me. They're like, they'll treat you as, how could you ever, they'll treat you with disbelief. I think that's part of the one of their main tools of manipulation is when it gets very severe, is that they will create a wedge of distrust in you, which doesn't even, you have not even done anything to be untrustworthy. Okay, they will create like a big iron rod, just say that, just treat you with disbelief, that you cannot be believed. And so beliefs are the core of your consciousness. They're the core of everything. They're like the gasoline that's running the engine. They're like the electricity that's in the lights. Your beliefs are what's running your life. I mean, your beliefs are the foundation, and part of the love bombing and part of the devalue and discard with the narcissist, because you're exhibiting that you believe in them, and that's part of the trust, and they take advantage, and they distrust, they break that bond, they break that agreement, they betray that pact. They end up then, violating you in the process. And oftentimes with their pathology, they will then rebuke you and then mistreat you. It's a narcissistic abuse. It's a type of emotional, psychological, and even sort of spiritual abuse, but the spirit is not injured. But the spirit then has to become involved for part of the healing. I mean, the spirit has to really give it the juice. But the, part of the main is treating you are unbelievable. I think that they're trying to sort of maim and kill you with those sort of statements of you should be extinguished. You don't even have the right to live. You don't even have the fire to survive. I mean, it's this really negative, just condescending tactic. It's just, that's all that it is. It doesn't mean that it has to own you or that you have to, accept it. You can see it for what it is. That's one of the main ploys that a narcissist and definitely, a psychopath also will inflict that on a very severe level. They'll do it with that sort of exuding that vacuous, negative, cold, callous energy that's not even cerebral. It's even, it's cerebral with a lot of evil intent. It's cerebral with a lot of sort of, evil and destructive and mistreating intent. There's intent is sort of your goal, your underlying motivation, so their intent is to just give you pushback, rebuke you, rebuff you, just smear campaign you so that you just look like a big mud bath. And it's their doing. It has nothing to do with you. It's part of their narrative. The narcissist will tell the story and lead the way. and then, tell you that you're stupid for doing what they told you to do. It's a very odd dynamic. Part of the problem is it's very disempowering. So stay away from those disappearing types and learn to sort of separate yourself and get into a real good habit of self-respect and observing. And you can see when and identify, maybe what you've experienced looking back, you can see how they did that. And once you kind of see that it's just a tactic, that's all that it is, you don't have to fall for it, because you can just say, you know what, that's just a tactic. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful day.